There is no superhero like Maxine Minx. Maxine Minx is in her own lane. There is no one that you could even compare her to. Hi, I'm Mia Goth, and this is how I became Maxine Minx. I see Maxine Minx as a superhero because she is somebody who really has nobody else to rely on but herself. She's, been handed this life where, she doesn't really have any family members. She is out in California, in Hollywood, all by herself, really. She has one close friend played by Moses Sumney, and it's really nice to see their relationship. But other than that, she's really on her own. And, it's kind of like sink or swim for Maxine in that situation, where that's either gonna be the end of her or really it's gonna be the beginning of her. And she decides that she's gonna use that to her advantage, and she's gonna become a, incredibly independent, self-reliant, resourceful, intelligent person, and no matter what the world throws at her, she's gonna overcome it. So when we meet Maxine Minx in the movie Maxine, she's just, survived a brutal massacre. She's the sole survivor of this horrendous event, and she gets into her car and she drives off into the sunrise. And she's at a real crossroads in her life once she gets into that car. And I think if it was somebody else in that situation, they would probably just devolve into a really meek, weakened, lesser version of themselves, just completely traumatized by the experience of what just happened. But Maxine doesn't do that. She grows from it. She's stronger because of it. She's more ambitious because of it, and she's more grateful because of it too. She's aware of how brief life is and how quickly it can be taken from you. And so in that moment when she's in that car, I think she really does make the decision there that she's going to drive off to Hollywood, and she just thinks, I'm going for it and nothing can stop me. And she believes in herself before anyone else does, and she really manifests her entire reality in that car, and she's just waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to her. How did I approach playing Maxine differently from X compared to who she is when we meet her in Maxine? Honestly, I think that I just took from my own life, my own pool of experience. Who I was when I was filming Maxine and X. It was during COVID. We went out to New Zealand, and I was in a very particular place in my life then, and I think that helped inform who Maxine became for X. And then, fast forward 3 years, that's a long time. And by that point, I was in a totally different place on every level. Like, so much had happened within that time that I grew alongside Maxine, and so who I was by the time we came to shoot Maxine in LA 3 years later. Yeah, just my own experiences and where I was at.
If you need to read off the sides we gave you, just go ahead, all right?
I know the lines. In many ways, the landscape, the scope, the music, the 80s, that's really the central character to this movie. There is no Maxine without Hollywood Boulevard and the Bates Motel and all these wonderful supporting characters that come in and out of the story. I did my work, I did my preparation, and I had ideas, but I really didn't know what it was going to be until I got there on the day. And just something about being there on set on these incredible, iconic locations that it just helped click everything into place. And it was only once we started filming, I guess, was I able to fully understand the direction in which we were going. That's a good question. What does Maxine see when she sees the Hollywood sign? Potential. I think being a star for Maxine means safety. It's that or it's nothing. And if she can be a star, she's securing her place in this world. If she can be a star, then she's made it. If she can be a star, then her life has meant something.
Ain't nowhere to hide in this show business. You never work in this town again.
Hardcore by Paul Schrader was one that I revisited. I watched that a couple of times. There are a lot of influences there, especially like the Hollywood Boulevard scenes. Brian De Palma, Carrie, that's 70s, isn't it? But still the same kind of realm. Yeah, and Dario Argento too. That kind of the bloody horror, that was helpful. I was listening to a lot of Blondie at the time. I created a whole playlist, and there was a lot of 80s music there, yes, but also whatever I felt moved me in some way or another. I mean, yes, to an extent it's important to kind of immerse yourself in that era and have that kind of music and that film, but I think what's really more important than anything is to have material that moves you in some way. You know, you can have great 80s music, but if it doesn't actually move you or stir you in some way or bring something out of you, then it's really for nothing. I had the Blondie stuff, but honestly, it didn't really give me that energy that I needed. And if anything, actually, I probably ended up listening to more hip hop, like certain beats, and like there's just like confidence in it. There was probably J. Cole in there, a bit of Kendrick Lamar in there, Eminem in there. Yeah. A little bit of a mixed bag.
Whatever's going on in your life that's interfering with this picture, squash it. I intend to.
So we worked with an incredible team. It was Jamie Lee McIntosh who worked on hair, and Sarah Rabano for makeup, and they are truly incredible. They're artists, and they came to the table with so many ideas. You know, originally I thought that maybe like Maxine should have a shorter hairdo, like maybe it was more like a bob style, and I was quite set on that. It was just something that I saw in my mind, and we tried it and it didn't work, and it was actually Jamie Lee that came up with the idea with the hair and that hairstyle and this kind of 80s-ish perm that Maxine has. That was all Jamie. I have to give her all the credit for that. And that was quite a long process for us to finally figure out what the hair was going to be. Whereas the makeup, I think, Sarah Rabano also did X and Pearl, and so by the time we got to prepping Maxine, we had, a shorthand with one another, which was really nice. And so that discovery was much quicker, and we were on the same page, and really, a couple of tests in, we found that pretty naturally, organically.
Maxine!
Maxine!
Maxine.
Maxine.
Maxine. Maxine.
You're a fucking movie star.
Well, I think that Maxine has a firmer grip on reality. I think she's more mature. There's a sense of order to Maxine. She's pretty rational and she has a plan, and she has a pretty logical plan that she's kind of mapped out in her head, and she's probably written it down, and she's got it in her journal. She carries the journal around with her, and she's able to look at the plan step by step. Like, she's much more pragmatic than Pearl, whereas Pearl is a dreamer, and she has these aspirations, and she's incredibly imaginative and creative, and she believes in herself too, but she's lacking that center. There's nowhere for her to anchor these aspirations of hers, and so she's quite scattered, and that's probably one of the reasons that things don't quite pan out for Pearl. And whereas they do for Maxine, she's logical, she's rational, she's got a plan, she's written it down, and she's manifesting it.
I've seen the devil stalking me. I can feel his power.
Me and Ty first met back in 2020. When we first started working on X, we would FaceTime every evening, we would talk, there was a lot of communication, we would go back and forth with ideas, and then we were writing Pearl together in constant dialogue, and we spent 6 months in New Zealand, and then during the post and the promotion of those two movies, so obviously we became very close. So by the time we got to shooting Maxine, we had such a shorthand with one another that we really didn't even really need to talk all that much. I had such an understanding of who Maxine was. This was our third movie together, and occasionally he would come to me and he would redirect me in a way that he thought perhaps might be a better approach to a scene. But he honestly spent more time with all the other actors, you know, like Elizabeth Debicki or Kevin Bacon, and just making sure that they kind of felt more centered. By the time I got to Maxine, he didn't really direct me all that much, because we just knew, and we had like spoken through everything at that point. We just knew where we were headed. I think maybe one of the reasons that Maxine has resonated with so many people is because she's so refreshing. There's just this no nonsense, no bullshit quality to her that I think people really appreciate. I think these days, you know, people are so filtered and so manicured in the way that they present themselves, that it's just really refreshing to see a character that has such agency over her own life and over her own decisions, and she really doesn't care what people think. And I imagine that perhaps people see that and find that, you know, somewhat inspiring perhaps, and just, you know, have this trilogy with like such a strong female character. It's rare. The whole situation is just extraordinary. It never really should have happened. It's only because of A24 and how much they champion their filmmakers that this even came into existence. I really don't think that this trilogy could ever exist outside of A24. It's a testament to them, really. And you know, you see how people respond to it, I guess, and yeah, it's refreshing, and people are into it.